Most business owners don't actually know how to hire. They wing it, they hire their friends, they hire their family, or they just hire whoever just seems decent in the interview, maybe even someone they just like. Then after they hire them, they give them a quick rundown and they just kind of cross their fingers and just hope for the best. There's no real process, there's no real structure, there's no clear onboarding system that they've set up to ramp this person to KPI as fast as humanly possible. And then they wonder why their team can't deliver, or worse, why they're still stuck doing the work themselves. But the truth is, you don't just randomly find great hires. They're attracted through a proven hiring system. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step framework that I've used to help over 500 business owners hire A-player remote talent directly inside their businesses. So if you want a team that actually runs without you, that shows up, that takes ownership, that actually solves problems and doesn't create problems for you, here's the exact process that'll get you there, so let's dive in. All right, step number one, get specific on the role, not just the tasks. So what most business owners do is they think, okay, so I need help with admin, and they just have this general idea of what they need help with. But what they really lack, and honestly probably in everything that they're doing in their business, is clarity. They don't take the time to sit down and actually map out and do some deep thinking about the specific types of admin that they need help with, or the specific type of work and whatever the role that they need help with. The reason that people don't do this is simple. It's extra work, it takes time, it takes energy, it requires focus. Human beings naturally gravitate towards whatever is going to require the least amount of effort. The average person can't even keep food out of their mouth, yet alone sit down and clearly and accurately define a role. What you really need to do is you need to create clarity on what success actually looks like and what a successful outcome is going to look like for the person that you're hiring in the long run. When you're vague, you will for sure attract vague applicants. You're going to attract these people that are shotgun approaching their job application process. They're applying to this job, they're applying to 10 jobs over here. They show up to the interview, they don't even know what the job is. So if you don't know exactly, precisely what you're hiring for, and you don't have the clarity and you don't have a clear vision to get the person to that successful outcome, your hire's not going to know either. And that's exactly how tasks fall through the cracks, or you end up having to micromanage people, which ultimately just ends up bogging you down and it's not giving you the leverage that you really need. So here's how you do it. All right, so number one, keep it simple, but write down 2 to 3 sentences of the purpose of the role. What is the goal of this person working in this role? What is their mission statement? It sounds kind of corny, but it's very important. This is going to give this person some direction and some clarity on a high level of what their mindset should be going into the job. Number 2, you need to clarify the outcomes that this role is responsible for. For example, all new clients are onboarded within 24 hours following this specific SOP. Or make sure all of my emails are answered by the end of the day and my calendar is optimized for the next day. Start to think about if the role was optimized perfectly, what kind of things would be off your plate? What would a perfect outcome look like for you? Of course, you're never really going to achieve a perfect outcome, but when you're planning the role and you're giving direction to the person, you need to set the bar really, really high. So here's some good and bad examples. When you go post a job, the bad example would be, I'm looking for an admin to help with some paperwork and some emails and look at my calendar, maybe do some scheduling. This is vague and generic. It doesn't clarify ownership or outcomes. And 3, this could apply to 100 different types of roles. So you give a vague job description, you get a vague applicant. This is just like marketing. If in your marketing messaging, you have very vague and broad messaging, you're gonna appeal to a lot of people and you're probably not gonna find exactly who you want. But if you niche down, you speak to specific pain points and you go after specific people, and you're very targeted in your messaging, you're gonna attract the exact clients that you want. You need to do the same thing when you're going to hire people. You need to have a clear vision of who you want, and then you need to define that in writing, so when you go blast it out to the entire internet, you can find that person. You wanna put that in writing and advertise it, so that when people read it and you find that person that resonates with that, you got them right there. Now here's a better example. This role exists to buy me back my time and to streamline my entire business, oversee my entire team of 30 people, and to keep my operations running smoothly without me even having to know what's going on. You'll be responsible for managing my calendar, managing internal processes, and making sure that nothing slips through the cracks in terms of fulfillment for our clients, making sure that new clients are onboarded and up to speed in a timely manner and are set up for success, and overseeing this team of 30 people, answering any questions they have, and making sure that everyone has a very clear direction on what to do on a daily basis. The purpose of this role is to remove me from the operation so that I can focus on sales, strategy, and growth. This is a much better example of how to communicate what you're looking to hire for because it clarifies the role, it explains exactly what the person would be owning, and it aligns their success with your targeted business outcome. Okay, step number 2, you're gonna go and write a job post that automatically filters out the wrong people. Now, when you go and post a job, especially if you do it online to people in another country, you're gonna get absolutely freaking bombarded with applicants. I posted a job in South Africa for a sales manager role the other day. I got 900 applicants in a day. Now, this trend continued on for the next week, so you can see how many people I had to deal with and my team had to filter through. It's crazy. So to get through 900 applicants a day in an efficient manner that's not gonna completely bog you down, you need to be strategic and you need to be filtering people out without you even really having to do it. For example, in the job description itself. So most job posts are very generic. They're cookie cutter, they've got bullet points, they've got like a mission statement on the company, and like to the person reading it, it literally looks like every single job post out there. And that's why you end up getting all these people that are just shotgunning applications all over the place. They're not actually resonating with whatever you wrote. So when I personally go and hire people for my company, I write the job description. I don't let someone else do it because I know if someone else does it, it's not gonna come from me. It's not gonna come from my heart and soul with what I'm really trying to communicate to the person I'm looking to hire. So for me, I put a ton of personality behind it. I clearly communicate that I am a no BS person and that if they're not a very, very, very serious professional who's gonna show up and crush it and be very coachable, I don't even wanna know they exist. And funny enough, I'll actually write that in the job description. I'll write some very strict criteria about the person that I'm looking for. And then after that, I'll say, if this sounds like you, keep reading. If not, please move on. I don't want to know that you exist. And what's so funny is that so many people that I've hired, usually months later or years later, they come back to me and they're like, you know what, I remember when I read your job post and I specifically applied to work for your company because I love the personality that you were putting behind the job post. And I just knew that you'd be the type of person I would want to work for. So if you can install some of your personality into the job description, it really helps attract people that resonate with you as a human being, and it can help deter people that don't resonate with you. And that'll do a ton of work for you when you're filtering down candidates in your pipeline before you even really have to review anyone, because the bad people won't even apply. Here's some quick tips on really how to optimize this job description. Start off with a simple intro, talk about what your company does, why you do it and why you started the company, and what the mission of the role is. And then after that, give them a clear description of what their day-to-day is gonna look like. Obviously, you don't wanna hire someone who comes into the role and they hate the day-to-day, so it's best to address that up front as clearly as you can. I also talk about the people that they'll be working with, how many people there are, how they're going to fit into the team, things like that. And then, like I said before, I'm very blunt, I'm very direct, I'm very honest. The last thing I'm trying to do is talk someone into joining my team into a role that they wouldn't actually be happy with, and then they end up quitting down the road. So I'm trying to be crystal clear on reality, how my company is, how I am, what my expectations are, literally everything, so that I can attract the right person that likes that right off the bat. Step number 3, you're going to interview for traits, not just talk. So most founders will go into an interview and they're gonna interview people kind of like it's a coffee date. They're just gonna chit chat, they're gonna ask some surface level questions, and they're just gonna like feel the person out for the vibe. And while I do think a vibe check is very, very important, it's like the first thing you look for, it's not enough. Because a vibe doesn't show you how they think, it doesn't show you how they solve problems, and it definitely doesn't show you how they handle pressure. A great way to see how people handle pressure is to put them on the spot. So if I'm hiring for appointment setting or sales, for example, where they actually need to convince the person of why they should meet with us or why our product or service is great, etc., I'll just put the person on the spot in the interview and I'll literally be like, okay, sell me on why I should hire you. Now, some people will give you very generic answers and they're like, well, I've got the skills and I've got the right attitude. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything. And then other people, they get it, they communicate their value, they have the right mindset, they know exactly how they're gonna make an impact. And they do that confidently and they articulate themselves and they thrive under pressure. And then the other people, they fold under pressure. You just get rid of those people. At the end of the day, great hires, they're not just experienced, they're coachable, they're communicative, and they're proactive, which is what a lot of people lack. So if you're only assessing their resumes or maybe their charisma and their general vibe, you're gonna miss the deeper traits that actually matter. So here's how you actually do it and execute on what I'm talking about. You need to prepare questions, so don't just wing it, that reveal how they actually solve problems. Your business is basically just a never-ending problem-solving machine, and I don't care how big you get, you're always gonna have problems, so you need problem solvers. A very high-level example of a question could be, tell me about a time you had a problem with XYZ and how did you solve it? Just get those kind of conversations going. Ask about ownership. Are they someone that will actually own their role and their responsibilities and the outcomes, or are they going to defer blame to other people? For example, if your manager were to disappear for 3 days, what do? How do you prioritize it, and what happens? And then, of course, pay attention to their communication. How do they communicate? Are they clear? Are they concise? Or conversely, are you sitting there wondering, what the heck is this person saying? Get to the point. What are you trying to communicate? Do they ask you follow-up questions when you're talking about certain topics? Do they ask you any questions at all? You're not just hiring for skills, you're hiring for how they actually work. And communication is a huge part of that, and the interview is a great place to learn how they actually communicate. All right, step number 4, I talk about this all the time. Set a simple test task to confirm they can actually do the job. Even if someone interviews well, it doesn't mean that they can actually do the job well. We see this time and time and time again. People sound good, they know what to say, their resume looks good, they've wore a suit to the interview, all this stuff, and then they get into the job and they just suck. The way that you can hedge your bets, and it'll never be a perfect science because it takes time to train people and see how they're actually gonna develop within the role, but you hedge your bets by giving them test tasks to see how they actually work before you commit to them. So in my other business, it's a call center. We hire 3 to 5 people a month just to answer the phone. Super simple job, not that hard. So as we get more clients, we have to hire more people to answer the phone. Now, some of the things that we look for are perfect English, because we hire outside the US. They have to be completely fluent. They have to have a very minimal accent. They have to be great communicators that are concise and know how to get their point across very quickly. They need to be personable, charismatic, stuff like that. That's all great. Now, we'll go and find a lot of those people, and then we'll give them a test task, which is to answer a phone call, follow a call script and process, not rocket science. And then they have to disposition the call, meaning they have to write some notes, and then they have to follow some directions after the call. There's many times where people sound great in the interview. They check all the boxes for the personality characteristics that we're looking for. They have good experience. Everything looks great. And then we're like, okay, let's go do your test task. They go and do it, and they're a complete freaking idiot. Do you see how this can save you so much time? On the surface, this person looked great. And then what have happened if we didn't give them a test task? We would have hired them, onboarded them, trained them for a couple weeks, put them into the role only to experience their lack of performance. And then we'd probably have to go back and coach them and train them more and like spend all this time and effort to get them up to where we need them to be. And it's just too much heavy lifting. You don't want heavy lifting. You want things to be easy. So moral of the story, you cannot rely on resumes. You cannot rely on conversations alone. You cannot do it. You need to see how they think. You need to see how fast they work. How closely do they follow instructions? And this is especially important if you're hiring remote hires. They have to have great self-direction. Is so key. If they're not a self-starter, if they cannot direct themselves and they're working from home and they're remote, do not do it. This is a terrible idea. All right, so here's how you actually do the test task. You're gonna pick either a paid or a free task, it doesn't really matter, that's gonna reflect what they're actually gonna be doing in the job. This will give you a little sample, a little bit of a taste for what they're actually like when they start working. If you're hiring for admin, go give them a messy email inbox or a spreadsheet or some documents or something and have them clean it up and see how they do. If it's operations, describe a process to them. Maybe you give them a video of someone explaining a process. Have them build out an SOP. If it's customer support, like I was hiring for, like I mentioned earlier, give them some sample calls to handle, some sample support tickets, things like that, and see how they perform. Make sure you give clear instructions. Remember, the whole theme of this video is creating clarity, and give them a tight turnaround, ideally 24 hours or less. Or ideally, you just have a recruiter do it for you in the actual interview. That way you can size them up and make a decision on whether or not you like them right away. And here's what you're looking for. How well do they communicate? How well do they follow directions? And whether or not they take ownership or do they just check the box? Step number 5 is where so many people go wrong. You need to set crystal clear expectations from day number 1. So what the average business owner does is they just drop the person into the role, they give them their tasks, and there's no real clarity on standards of communication, quality of work, how they're going to fit into the team, really anything in general. So what I personally do is I have an onboarding checklist in a Google Doc, and then when I onboard the person, I share my screen and I just go through the same thing every single time. Here's exactly what I'm expecting from you in terms of your performance. Here's how we communicate. Here's certain things that we do as a company and our culture. Like literally everything that you can come up with. You can even create Loom videos of you talking about these things and you have the person watch it. Don't assume the person's gonna come prepared, already trained with your company culture and values in mind. And don't assume that they're gonna read your mind. The best people that you can hire, they don't just do work for you. They don't just check off tasks every day. They actually take true and complete ownership of their role. But they can really only do that if they understand your expectations of them. And remember, if you give them vague instructions from when you onboard them or even afterwards into training, you're gonna have to do more hand-holding, you're gonna have to do more micromanaging. This is partially about setting this person up for success, and it's partially about making your life a heck of a lot easier and to eliminate as much of the heavy lifting that's associated with training people up front. In a perfect world, you get to the point where you have all your training videos laid out, you've got your onboarding system clearly laid out, and your onboarding system is like a conveyor belt that you put the person on and they go through and they get trained and they know exactly what to do, and it minimizes your time, energy, and involvement. So here's some advice on what you actually need to do. So you need to clearly define the KPIs for their role. You need to define how you're going to communicate. Is it on WhatsApp? Is it on Slack? Do you need them to send you Loom videos on what they're doing to check in every day or weekly? Be very upfront and direct about your working style. Do you want real-time updates? Do you want them to move quickly? Do you want them to summarize stuff at the end of the day? What do you want from them? You need to get in alignment with what great actually looks like to you. And again, don't just assume that they're gonna read your mind and know. Here's an example on screen of what this could actually look like for an admin support role. All right, step number 6, create a system that keeps them around long term. This is so incredibly important. You need to be thinking about this from day one, like right when you go post the job, even before you find out who you're gonna hire, start to think about how to make this a possibility. Compounded growth is the most powerful concept in the universe. The same thing happens with people that you hire within your company. The longer that people are around, assuming you have proper training and culture, management, etc., the better they're going to become at their roles. They're going to get more specialized expertise. They're going to become a better and better investment for you. And then when you have a lot of people that you've hired and this is scaled and they're all around for the long run, things get really powerful. You get a lot of leverage from that. A common theme with A players is they want to grow. They don't want to stay stagnant. They don't want to stay in this cookie cutter role where they do the same thing over and over and over. If you don't give them feedback, recognition, or a path on how to move forward and how to progress, they're going to probably leave you, or maybe they, even worse, they'll just disengage and they'll stay with you. They're going to silent quit on you. Hiring is really only half the game. Retention is going to end up saving you so much money, so much time, and most importantly, in my opinion, so much momentum in the long run. Think about it. If you hire somebody, you invest all this time, all this money into training them at the opportunity cost of other stuff that you could have been doing, or if you're a bigger company, opportunity cost of things that your team could have been doing instead. And then the person quits after like a couple months or a year or even 2 years, which is not a very long amount of time. Well, then guess what happens? You need to go find a new person. You've got to train them again. You just lost all this momentum. And if you have this problem occurring across many different people within your organization, you basically have a leaky bucket in terms of your talent. You need to take that leaky bucket, you need to plug all the different holes, and you need to try to retain everybody for as long as you possibly can. Here's some advice on how to retain people in the long run. The first thing you can do is you need to book monthly check-ins with people, even if it's just 15 minutes. Something is definitely better than nothing. You need to ask them, what's working? Where do you feel blocked? Just get some feedback from them and check in with them. One thing that I really try to do personally is I always praise publicly. So if I'm in a team meeting, I try to praise everybody publicly and make it known that the person's doing a great job. And then when you need to correct people, do it privately. If you do it in front of the group, you're probably gonna piss people off. You're probably gonna embarrass them. You do that too many times, they're gonna start to build some resentment for you, so don't do that. Now, admittedly, I definitely don't always do this perfectly, and if anyone that's working for me is watching this right now, you know that I'm probably good at it, okay? So give me a little bit of credit. Sometimes I would say there is some value in criticizing publicly if you do it the right way. You need to be cautious, you need to do it constructively. And the reason I say this is good to do once in a while is because you can also use it as a training experience for everyone else in the meeting. Just make sure you don't badger the person, don't be disrespectful. Obviously, there's never any room for that. Make sure to ask the person how they want to grow. How do they see themselves progressing? What are their goals? And of course, make sure everyone knows that they're actually valued. Make sure they know that you genuinely care. And hopefully you do actually genuinely care, because people will see right through you if you don't. One of the things that I think that I personally have done really well that I just want to communicate with you, this isn't to give me a pat on the back, is that I actually care about every single person that I hire, genuinely. I want to give everybody a great opportunity. I want everyone to become the best version of themselves that they possibly can, and I won't let them settle for less. All right, so now you have the full hiring playbook that it takes to build a team that actually runs your business, instead of constantly needing you to come in, fix things, do the work, and clean up their mess. Now, if you don't want to go and figure all this out on your own, lucky for you, we actually help business owners hire trained, vetted remote talent for admins, ops, marketing, sales, like pretty much any role that you could think of. We handle the entire recruitment and hiring process from end to end, so you can go and get an A player who's going to hit the ground running. If that sounds like something you might want some help with, go and click the link in the description to book a free strategy call.